The explosion tore through the station like a giant fist punching through paper. Captain Jinho grabbed the edge of his command chair as the floor tilted beneath him. Red lights flashed across every screen in the bridge. The sound of tearing metal screamed through the walls. "All hands, abandon ship," someone shouted over the communication system. But Jinho knew it was already too late for most of them. He ran through the burning corridors of Frontier Station, Delta 7. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were his friends. People he had eaten breakfast with just 3 hours ago. The Calther attack had come without warning. Their ships had appeared from nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right on top of the human defense fleet. Jinho's lungs burned from the smoke. His eyes watered, but he kept moving toward the docking bay. The emergency lights flickered on and off, making everything look like a nightmare. He could hear the station groaning around him, dying piece by piece. When he reached the docking bay, only one ship remained. The Silent Ember. It was a small stealth frigate, painted black as space itself. Most of the other escape pods and ships had already launched or been destroyed. Jinho didn't hesitate. He climbed aboard and sealed the hatch behind him. The ship's systems came online slowly. Too slowly. Jinho's hands moved across the controls with practiced speed. He had been an engineer before becoming a soldier. He knew ships like other people knew their own heartbeat. The Silent Ember's engines coughed, then roared to life. Come on, Jinho whispered. Through the view screen, he could see Calther warships firing at the station. The aliens were methodical, efficient, and ruthless. They left nothing alive. The Silent Ember shot out of the docking bay just as another explosion rocked the station. Jinho pushed the throttle forward, weaving between debris and laser fire. The Calther ships were huge compared to his frigate. Each one was 3 times the size of any human warship. And there were dozens of them. Jinho activated the stealth systems. The Silent Ember's hull seemed to shimmer, then fade from most sensors. It wasn't true invisibility, but it made the ship very hard to find, especially if he stayed near asteroids and debris. The pursuing Calther ships lost track of him within minutes, but Jinho's relief lasted only seconds. Warning lights blazed across his control panel. The FTL drive was damaged. Life support was failing. Weapons were completely offline. The ship had taken hits during the escape that he hadn't even noticed. Wonderful, he muttered. He was alone, in a crippled ship, surrounded by enemies. Jinho set a course for the Azar Nebula. It was the closest place to hide. The nebula was famous for being impossible to navigate. Ion storms raged constantly inside it. Sensors didn't work properly. Ships could get lost forever in there. But right now, that sounded perfect. As the Silent Ember limped toward the nebula, Jinho let himself think about what had happened. The entire human fleet at Delta 7 was gone. 15 ships. 3,000 people. All dead in less than an hour. And for what? Then Jinho remembered. The data chip in his pocket. During the attack, he had been in the communications room when an encrypted message arrived from Terran intelligence. The message contained stolen Calther files. Files about something called Project World Breaker. He had downloaded them onto a data chip just before the first explosion hit. Jinho pulled the chip from his pocket and looked at it. This tiny thing was probably why the Calther had attacked so hard. They wanted these files back. They wanted to make sure no human survived who might have seen them. Well, too bad, Jinho said to the empty bridge. You missed one. The Silent Ember entered the Azar Nebula 3 hours later. Immediately, everything changed. Colors swirled outside the view screen. Purple, green, orange. Beautiful and deadly. The ship shook as it pushed through thick clouds of ionized gas. Jinho's instruments went crazy, showing readings that made no sense. he found a large asteroid and guided the ship behind it. The silent embers settled into the shadow, hidden from anyone looking for it. Jinho shut down all non-essential systems to conserve power. The bridge lights dimmed. The temperature dropped. Jinho sat in the darkness and thought about his home, the colony world where he had grown up. The Calther had destroyed it 2 years ago. His parents died in that attack. His younger sister Hannah had died in his arms, her last words still haunting him. "Live loud enough for both of us," she had whispered. Since then, Jinho had been fighting the Calther. He had studied their tactics, their technology, their way of thinking. He knew them better than most humans did. That knowledge had kept him alive when everyone else at Delta 7 had died. Now, sitting in a damaged ship in the middle of nowhere, Jinho made a decision. He wouldn't just hide in this nebula. He wouldn't just try to survive. If the Calther wanted him dead so badly, he would make them work for it. Jinho pulled up the long-range sensors. Even through the nebula's interference, he could detect ships at the edges. Lots of ships. He counted the contacts. His eyes widened. 500, he said aloud. They sent 500 warships to find one human. A cold smile spread across Jinho's face. The Calther thought numbers meant victory. They always had. They believed overwhelming force could solve any problem. But they had never fought someone like him. Someone who had nothing left to lose. Someone who knew that sometimes one person could be worth more than an entire fleet. "All right," Jinho said, cracking his knuckles. "Let's begin." Outside the silent ember, the nebula swirled and danced. And somewhere in its depths, a ghost was born. 3 days passed inside the Azza Nebula. Jinho worked without rest, repairing what he could on the silent ember. The ship would never be perfect again, but he could make it dangerous. He rerouted power systems, rebuilt sensor arrays from spare parts, and turned maintenance drones into remote weapons. The Calther fleet sat at every exit point from the nebula. Jinho watched them through his sensors. They moved in perfect formations, like machines instead of living beings. That was their weakness. They were predictable. On the 4th day, Jinho launched his first attack. He had built a decoy from pieces of the ship's outer hull. It looked like a damaged escape pod on sensors. He sent it drifting toward the southern edge of the nebula, where a group of 12 Calther ships waited. The Calther took the bait. 6 warships broke formation to investigate. They surrounded the decoy, scanning it carefully. Jinho watched from 15 kilometers away, hidden behind a gas cloud. He had attached one of the ship's old torpedoes to the decoy. The torpedo was damaged, unreliable. But it only needed to work once. Jinho pressed the trigger. The torpedo exploded. The blast caught 3 Calther ships at close range. Their shields flared and died. Atmosphere vented from their hulls. 2 ships went dark completely. The third spun away, trailing debris. Before the other Calther ships could react, Jinho was gone. The silent ember vanished into the nebula like smoke in wind. By the time the enemy tried to track him, the ion storms had erased every trace. News of the attack spread through the Calther fleet. Jinho intercepted their communications, listening to their confusion. How had one human ship destroyed 3 of theirs? Where had he gone? Was there a secret human base in the nebula? High Commander Vrock's voice came over the Calther command frequency. He sounded angry. "Increase patrols. Double the sensor sweeps. I want that human found and destroyed." Jinho smiled in the darkness of his bridge. They were afraid. Good. Over the next week, Jinho struck 3 more times. Each attack was different. Once, he used the nebula's ion storms to fry the sensors of an entire patrol group. Another time, he hacked their communication system and gave false orders, sending 2 Calther squadrons to the same coordinates. They opened fire on each other before realizing their mistake. The Calther death count grew. 20 ships. Then 30. Then 47. The massive fleet that had seemed unstoppable was now jumping at shadows. Soldiers argued with their officers. Captains questioned their orders. But Jinho knew he couldn't keep this up forever. The silent ember was falling apart. Life support was down to emergency levels. Food was running out. He needed supplies. He needed information. He needed help. That's when his sensors detected something strange. Deep in the nebula, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, there were power signatures. Small ones. Not Calther. Possibly human. Jinho approached carefully. If this was a trap, he was finished. But as he got closer, he received a tight beam transmission. A woman's voice, speaking human standard language with a slight accent. Unknown ship, this is Haven Outpost. Identify yourself or we fire. Jinho let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. Humans. Actual living humans. This is Captain Jinho of the Terran Expeditionary Force, he replied. I'm alone and in need of assistance. There was a long pause. Then the woman's voice came back, softer. Jinho? The one the Calther are hunting? The ghost? I'm not a ghost, Jinho said. Just someone who won't die easily. The woman laughed. It was a warm sound, one Jinho hadn't heard in a long time. Come to Docking Bay 3, slowly. We have weapons pointed at you. Haven Outpost was bigger than Jinho expected. Inside the asteroid were caves that had been converted into living spaces. About 200 people lived there, all refugees from Calther attacks. They had been hiding in the nebula for almost a year. The woman who had contacted him was named Nari. She was tall and thin, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore old military clothing, and Jinho noticed the way she moved. Trained, professional. Terran intelligence, Nari said, noticing his look. Former, anyway. I was on a deep cover mission when my ship was destroyed. Found this place and decided to stay. They sat in a small room that served as Nari's office. Coffee steamed in cups between them. Real coffee, not the synthetic stuff. Jinho drank it slowly, savoring every drop. The Calther have the nebula surrounded, Nari said. 500 ships. We've been watching them. Watching you too. You've been busy. I do what I can, Jinho said. Nari leaned forward. Why are they so desperate to catch you? One person shouldn't require that much firepower. Jinho pulled out the data chip. This. Intelligence files about a Calther project. I haven't had time to decrypt them fully, but I know it's big. Nari took the chip carefully, like it was made of glass. We have better computers here. I can run the decryption. It might take a few days. I don't have a few days, Jinho said. The Calther are getting smarter. They're adapting to my tactics. Soon they'll figure out how to corner me. Then stay here, Nari said. We're hidden. They've never found us. Jinho shook his head. If I stay, I put everyone here at risk. The Calther won't stop looking. Eventually, they'll search every asteroid in this nebula. When they find this place, they'll destroy it. Nari was quiet for a moment. Outside the small window, Jinho could see people working in the asteroid's gardens. Growing food, living, trying to have normal lives despite the war. My sister died 2 years ago, Jinho said suddenly. Colony raid. She told me to live loud enough for both of us. I didn't understand what she meant until now. And now? Nari asked. Now I know that hiding isn't living. Those people out there, they're alive because they're fighting. Maybe not with weapons, but by refusing to give up. By building something despite everything. Jinho looked at Nari. I can't hide. But I can fight. And maybe that fight gives everyone else a chance. Nari studied him for a long time. Then she stood and extended her hand. 3 days. We'll decrypt those files, give you supplies, and repair your ship as much as possible. After that, you do what you need to do. Jinho shook her hand. Her grip was firm, strong. Thank you. As Jinho left the office, Nari called after him. Jinho? The people here, they call you the Ghost of Terra. They tell stories about you. You've become a symbol. Jinho paused at the door. I'm just one person. Sometimes, Nari said quietly, one person is enough. The decryption took 2 days. When Nari finally cracked the files, her face went pale. She called Jinho to the computer room immediately. Look at this, she said, pulling up technical diagrams on the screen. Project Worldbreaker. It's a weapon system. Multiple satellites that work together. When activated, they can ignite a planet's atmosphere from orbit. Jinho felt his blood turn cold. Ignite the atmosphere? You mean complete planetary destruction, Nari confirmed. Everything burns. Nothing survives. The Calther have been building these satellites in secret. According to these files, they're almost finished. She pulled up another file. A target list. Jinho recognized the names immediately. Human colony worlds. 12 of them. Millions of people. This is why they want me dead, Jinho whispered. If this information reaches Terran Command, they can stop the project. Destroy the satellites before they're operational. But you're trapped in this nebula, Nari said. Surrounded by 500 warships. How do you get this information out? Jinho stared at the screen, at the diagrams, at the target list. His mind raced through possibilities. None of them were good. All of them required a miracle. I need to think, he said finally. That night, Jinho couldn't sleep. He walked through Haven Outpost, watching the refugees. Children played in the corridors. Adults talked and laughed over dinner. An old man taught a young girl to play chess. Normal life, somehow continuing in the middle of a war. He found Nari standing by a window that looked out into the nebula. The colors swirled and danced outside. Beautiful and deadly, like everything in this war. Can't sleep either? Nari asked without turning around. Too much thinking, Jinho said. He stood beside her. Tell me something. Why did you stay here? Your intelligence. You could have found a way back to human space. Nari was quiet for a moment. Because I was tired of running. Tired of hiding. These people needed someone who knew how to organize, how to protect them. I couldn't just leave. Even though staying means you might die here. We're all going to die somewhere, Nari said. At least here, I'm doing something that matters. They stood together in silence. Outside, the nebula shifted and changed. Inside, something shifted in Jinho too. An idea. Dangerous. Probably impossible. But maybe, just maybe, it could work. I have a plan, Jinho said. It's insane. All the best plans are, Nari replied with a slight smile. Jinho explained his idea over the next hour. Nari listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You're right, she said finally. That's insane. It'll probably get you killed. Probably, Jinho agreed. But it might work, Nari continued. And if it does, you could save millions of lives. I can't do it alone, Jinho said. I need help. A distraction. Something big enough to pull the Calther fleet away from their command ships. Nari looked at him steadily. You're asking me to sacrifice these people. To use Haven Outpost as bait. I'm asking you to fight, Jinho said. I know it's not fair. I know these people came here to escape the war. But the war found them anyway. And if we don't stop the Worldbreaker, there won't be anywhere left to hide. The next day, Nari called a meeting. Everyone at Haven Outpost gathered in the main chamber. Jinho explained everything. The world breaker. The target list. His plan. I won't order anyone to fight, Nari said when he finished. This has to be your choice. If you want to stay hidden, stay. If you want to fight, we fight together. An old man stood up. His name was Dejin. He had lost his entire family in a Calther raid. I'm tired of hiding, he said. I vote we fight. One by one, others stood. Young and old. Men and women. Within minutes, almost everyone in the chamber was standing. Even the teenagers. Even some of the children, though their parents quickly sat them back down. Jinho felt something catch in his throat. These people had every reason to hide. Every reason to avoid more fighting. But they stood anyway. Then we fight, Nari said quietly. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us. They prepared for 3 days. Haven Outpost had weapons hidden away. Old guns, missiles, even a few small attack drones. Nothing that could match a Calther warship in direct combat. But enough to be annoying. Enough to be a distraction. Jinho spent the time working on the Silent Ember. Nari's engineers helped him install new systems. Stealth upgrades. Better sensors. They couldn't fix everything, but the ship would be fast and very hard to detect Dot on the night before the attack. Jinho and Nari sat together in the observation room. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, many of them would probably die. I want you to know something, Nari said. In case tomorrow goes badly. Don't, Jinho started to say. Listen, Nari interrupted. When you arrived here, something changed. People had been just surviving, just waiting. But you reminded them what it means to fight back. What it means to hope. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, you've already made a difference. Jinho looked at her. Really looked at her. In another life, another time, maybe they could have been something more than fellow soldiers. Maybe they could have had something normal, safe. If we survive this, Jinho said slowly, when the war is over, I'm gonna find a quiet planet somewhere. Open a repair shop. Fix ships for farmers and merchants. Live a boring, peaceful life. That sounds nice, Nari said softly. Come with me, Jinho said. The words surprised him as much as they surprised her. Nari smiled. It was sad and warm at the same time. Ask me again after tomorrow. If we're both still alive. The next morning, the attack began. Haven Outpost launched everything it had. Small ships, drones, missiles. They came screaming out of the asteroid, firing at the nearest Calther patrol groups. The response was immediate. Calther warships turned toward the outpost. Hundreds of them. The distraction worked perfectly. High, Commander Vrock's voice screamed over the Calther communication channels. All ships, converge on coordinate 774. We found their base. Destroy it. In the chaos, nobody noticed the small black ship that slipped away from the asteroid's far side. The Silent Ember, barely visible even when you knew where to look, headed toward the Calther command fleet. Jinho gripped the controls tightly. Behind him, his people were fighting and dying to give him this chance. He couldn't waste it. He wouldn't. For Hannah, he whispered. For all of them. The Silent Ember disappeared into the nebulous depths, hunting the biggest prey of all. The Calther command fleet sat at the center of the nebula, protected by layers of patrol ships. 3 massive carriers formed the heart of the formation. Each carrier was 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. The largest was called the Dominion's Fist, where High Commander Vrock directed the entire operation. Jinho approached from below, using the nebula's ion storms to mask his approach. The Silent Ember's stealth systems were running at maximum. On his sensors, he watched as more than 200 Calther warships raced toward Haven Outpost. The distraction was working, but it wouldn't last forever. He had maybe 30 minutes before the Calther realized the outpost wasn't the real threat. 30 minutes to do the impossible. The Dominion's fist was heavily shielded. Direct assault would be suicide. But Jinho wasn't planning a direct assault. He was planning something much crazier. Calther ships constantly launched and recovered smaller craft. Supply shuttles, patrol fighters, maintenance drones. They followed strict flight patterns, rigid schedules. Jinho had studied these patterns during his weeks in the nebula. He knew exactly when the next supply shuttle would dock. The silent ember drifted into position behind a debris field. Jinho waited. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart hammered in his chest. Everything depended on the next few seconds. A Calther supply shuttle emerged from the nebula, heading toward the Dominion's fist. It was a boxy, ugly ship, designed for cargo instead of combat. Perfect. Jinho accelerated hard. The silent ember shot forward like a missile. Before the Calther shuttle could react, Jinho matched its speed and position. He activated a magnetic clamp, attaching his ship to the shuttle's underside. The shuttle pilot never noticed. Why would he? Sensors were useless in the nebula, and nobody expected a human ship to be hiding underneath a supply shuttle. The shuttle approached the carrier. Massive hangar doors opened. The shuttle flew inside, and the silent ember came with it. As soon as they were through the doors, Jinho detached and dove behind a stack of cargo containers. The silent ember powered down completely, becoming nothing more than another piece of equipment in the busy hangar. Jinho grabbed his weapon and a small pack of supplies. He sealed his suit and opened the airlock. The hangar was enormous, filled with Calther soldiers moving cargo and maintaining ships. None of them looked twice at the shadows near the cargo containers. Jinho moved like smoke. His military training took over, guiding him through the massive ship. The Calther were strong and disciplined, but they expected overwhelming force to solve their problems. They didn't expect one human to infiltrate their command carrier. Twice, Jinho encountered guards. The first time, he used a maintenance corridor to avoid them. The second time, he had no choice. The guard turned a corner and saw him. Jinho moved before the Calther could raise his weapon. Human speed against Calther strength. Jinho dodged the alien's grab, stepped inside his reach, and drove a knife into the gap in his armor. The guard fell without a sound. Jinho kept moving. He was hunting for the communication center. Every capital ship had one. A place where all the encrypted messages were processed and transmitted across long distances. If he could reach it, he could broadcast the world-breaker data to every human outpost in range. Alarm sirens suddenly blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. Jinho's heart sank. They had found the dead guard. Or maybe they had discovered Haven Outpost wasn't the real threat. Either way, time was up. Jinho ran. He gave up stealth and just ran, taking corridors at random, trying to get deeper into the ship. Behind him, he could hear Calther soldiers shouting. Heavy boots pounding on metal floors. Then a voice called out in human standard. "Human, there is no escape." Jinho turned. A Calther warrior stood at the end of the corridor. But this one was different. He wore black armor with silver markings. Elite. Special Forces. "I am Specialist Kravik," the alien said. "I have studied you, Ghost of Terra. Your tactics. Your patterns. I knew you would come here." "Then you know I don't give up," Jinho replied. Kravik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Good. I would be disappointed otherwise." They met in the middle of the corridor like two storms colliding. Kravik was bigger, stronger. But Jinho was faster, more creative. They fought hand to hand, neither able to use weapons in such close quarters. Kravik landed a punch that sent Jinho crashing into the wall. His ribs screamed with pain. But Jinho rolled with the impact, grabbed a pipe from the wall, and swung it like a club. The pipe connected with Kravik's helmet, cracking the visor. The fight moved through the corridor, brutal, desperate. Jinho took hits that should have killed him. But Hana's voice echoed in his mind. Live loud enough for both of us. He couldn't die here. Not yet. Finally, Jinho saw an opening. He ducked under Kravik's swing, grabbed the knife from his belt, and drove it up through the gap in the Calther's armor. Kravik's eyes went wide. He fell to his knees, then collapsed. Jinho didn't wait. He grabbed Kravik's security card and kept running. The communications center was close now. He could feel it. The doors were sealed, but Kravik's card opened them. Jinho stumbled inside and locked the doors behind him. He had maybe 2 minutes before the Calther cut through. The room was filled with computers and transmission equipment. Jinho worked with bleeding hands, accessing the system. The data chip slotted in easily. He set the broadcast to maximum range, every frequency humans used. Come on, he whispered. The upload bar moved slowly, too slowly. Behind him, the doors glowed red as Calther soldiers began cutting through. 1 minute. 30 seconds. The metal was melting. The upload completed. Jinho hit the transmit button. Immediately, every human outpost within 10 light years received the Worldbreaker data. Terran command, military stations, colony worlds. Everyone. The doors burst open. Calther soldiers poured in, but Jinho was smiling. Too late, he said. Everyone knows now. High Commander Vrock's face appeared on the main screen. He looked like rage given physical form. You fool. You think this changes anything? You're trapped on my ship. You'll die here. Maybe, Jinho agreed. He pulled out a second device from his pack. A ship system remote, modified to access the carrier's reactor controls. But I won't die alone. Vrock's eyes widened. What have you done? I'm overloading your reactor, Jinho said calmly. In about 3 minutes, this entire ship becomes a small sun. You should probably evacuate. Chaos erupted. Alarms screamed louder than before. Vrock was shouting orders. Soldiers ran in every direction. The carrier shuddered as emergency systems tried and failed to shut down the reactor. Jinho ran with everyone else, heading for the hangar. He had to reach the Silent Ember, had to escape. The mission was complete, but he still wanted to live. Wanted to see if Nari had survived. Wanted that quiet shop on a peaceful planet. He reached the hangar as the first explosions began. The Silent Ember was there, exactly where he had left it. Jinho threw himself into the pilot's seat and fired the engines. The ship shot out of the hangar bay just as another explosion rocked the carrier. Outside, the Calther fleet was in chaos. Ships were evacuating, fleeing from the dying command carrier. Nobody noticed one small human ship escaping in the opposite direction. The Dominion's fist exploded. The blast was like a new star being born. It vaporized everything within 5 kilometers. The shockwave caught dozens more Calther warships, tearing them apart. Jinho's sensors counted the losses. 83 warships destroyed. The entire command structure of the Calther fleet gone in seconds. But he didn't have time to celebrate. The Silent Ember was badly damaged from the fight and the blast. Life support was failing. Engines were dying. Jinho set a course for Haven Outpost's last known coordinates and engaged autopilot. Then he slumped in his chair, exhausted. He had done it. Against every possible odd, he had done it. As his eyes closed, he wondered if he would wake up again. And if he did, would Nari be there waiting? Jinho woke to the sound of voices. Human voices. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then pain shot through his entire body, and he knew he was very much alive. Easy, someone said. A woman, not Nari, but familiar somehow. You've been unconscious for 2 days. You're on a medical ship. You're safe." Jinho opened his eyes slowly. The light hurt. Everything hurt. He was in a clean white room, lying on a proper medical bed. 4 tubes ran into his arms. Monitors beeped steadily beside him. "Where?" His voice came out as a croak. He tried again. "Where am I?" "Terran Medical Frigate Mercy," the woman said. She was a doctor, wearing clean blue scrubs. "We found you drifting near the Azar Nebula. Your ship was barely holding together. You're lucky to be alive." "Haven Outpost?" Jinho managed. "The refugees. Are they?" The doctor's expression softened. "Most of them survived. They evacuated when things got too hot. A woman named Nari led them out. She's actually been waiting to see you. Should I send her in?" Jinho nodded, not trusting his voice. The doctor left. A moment later, Nari entered. She looked tired. Her arm was in a sling, and she had a bandage across her forehead. But she was alive. She was smiling. "You look terrible," Nari said. "You should see the other guy," Jinho replied. Nari laughed and sat carefully in the chair beside his bed. "We watched the explosion from our escape ships. The Dominion's fist going up like a supernova. It was beautiful and terrifying. Did everyone make it out?" Jinho asked. Nari's smile faded a little. "We lost 43 people in the fighting. Old Dejin was one of them. He died covering our retreat. But because of what you did, because of what we all did, 157 people are alive who shouldn't be." They sat in silence for a moment, remembering the dead, remembering the cost of survival. "The transmission worked," Nari said finally. Terran Command received the World Breaker data. They launched a major offensive 3 weeks ago. Operation Righteous Fury, they're calling it. The Calther satellite network was destroyed before it ever became operational. Millions of lives saved. 3 weeks? Jinho said. "How long have I been asleep?" "On and off?" "Almost a month. You had broken ribs, internal bleeding, severe concussion. The doctors said you should have died. But you're too stubborn for that." Jinho managed a weak smile. "Hannah always said I was stubborn." "Your sister would be proud," Nari said softly. "You lived loud enough for both of you. For all of us." Over the next few days, Jinho learned more about what had happened. The destruction of the Dominion's fist and the death of High Commander Vrock had thrown the Calther fleet into chaos. Without clear leadership, the 500 warships had scattered. Some tried to continue the blockade. Others retreated to Calther space. Many were destroyed by arriving Terran reinforcements. The war wasn't over. But the tide had turned. Human forces were pushing back across multiple sectors. The story of one human captain who had destroyed a command carrier and crippled an entire fleet spread like wildfire. Morale soared. Recruitment numbers doubled. But officially, Captain Jinho didn't exist. Terran Command had listed him as missing in action. Presumed killed at Frontier Station Delta 7. His name appeared on memorial walls alongside everyone else who had died that day. They want it that way, Nari explained during one of her visits. The ghost of Terra is more useful as a legend than as a living person. Someone the Calther can't track down and kill. Someone who could be anywhere, doing anything. "So I'm officially dead," Jinho said. "You're officially a ghost," Nari corrected. "There's a difference." A week later, Jinho was well enough to walk. He stood at the window of the medical ship, looking out at the stars. A nurse had told him they were near the edge of Terran space, in a quiet sector far from the fighting. Nari found him there. Her arm was out of the sling now, healing fast. She stood beside him, also looking at the stars. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said quietly. "About that repair shop on a quiet planet." "Yeah?" Jinho said. "Yeah. But I have one condition. What's that? I get to pick the planet. Somewhere warm. With an ocean. I'm tired of nebulas and asteroids and space stations. I want to see real water. Real sunsets. Jinho smiled. It was the first real smile he had felt in months. Deal. They stood together, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the war continued. People fought and died. Ships exploded. Planets burned. But here, in this quiet moment, two people who had survived the impossible allowed themselves to dream of peace. 3 months later, a small repair shop opened on the colony world of New Jeju. The planet was warm, with beautiful oceans and spectacular sunsets. The shop was run by a quiet man named Jinho and a woman named Nari. They fixed ships for farmers and merchants. They lived simple, normal lives. Nobody knew that the quiet mechanic had once been hunted by 500 warships. Nobody knew that he had crippled an entire fleet and saved millions of lives. The few people who suspected said nothing. Some stories were better left as legends. But sometimes, late at night, ships would disappear from Calther convoys. Supply depots would explode for no apparent reason. Patrol groups would vanish without a trace. The Calther military blamed ghosts. Equipment failure. Bad luck. They were half right. It was a ghost. But not the kind that haunted. The kind that hunted. On New Jeju, Jinho would sometimes wake from dreams of battles and explosions. Nari would hold his hand until he fell back asleep. During the day, they worked on ships and laughed with customers and watched the ocean waves roll in. One day, a young person came to the shop. They wore military clothing and looked nervous. "Excuse me," they said. "Are you the one they call the ghost?" Jinho looked up from the engine he was repairing. He wiped grease from his hands and studied the young soldier. They couldn't be more than 20 years old. Too young for war. But then, everyone was too young for war. "I'm just a mechanic," Jinho said. "But the stories are just stories," Jinho interrupted gently. "Taily soldiers tell to keep their spirits up. There's no ghost. Just people doing their best to survive." The young soldier looked disappointed, but they nodded and left. Jinho watched them go, then returned to his work. Nari emerged from the office. "That was kind," she said, "letting them keep their legend." "Everyone needs something to believe in," Jinho replied. "If thinking there's a ghost out there helps them sleep at night, who am I to take that away?" That evening, they sat on the beach and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. The ocean reflected the colors like a mirror. It was peaceful, perfect. "Do you ever regret it?" Nari asked. "Staying hidden. Letting them think you're dead." Jinho thought about it. Thought about the memorial with his name on it. Thought about the soldiers who believed in a ghost. Thought about the quiet life he had now. "No," he said finally. "I fought because I had to. I did what needed doing. But I don't need glory or recognition. I just need this, peace. You, a life worth living." Nari leaned her head on his shoulder. "Hannah would approve." "I think she would." Jinho agreed. Above them, stars began to appear as the sun set completely. Those same stars looked down on battlefields and war zones. On ships fighting for survival. Barjos. On people hoping for peace. The universe was vast and full of conflict. But here, on this beach, in this moment, two people had found something precious. Something the war couldn't take away. Hope. Love. A future. The ghost stories continued. Across the galaxy, people whispered about the Terran who had destroyed 500 warships. The man who had saved millions. The legend who could never be caught. The Calther searched for him obsessively. They sent spies. They offered rewards. They analyzed every shred of data from that day in the Azure Nebula. But they never found him. How could they? They were looking for a warrior, a soldier, a ghost. They never thought to look for a mechanic who fixed farm equipment and watched sunsets with the woman he loved. And so the legend grew while the man faded. Which was exactly how Jinho wanted it. He had lived loud enough for Hana, for everyone who had died. Now he could live quietly for himself. The war would end someday. Picalther would be defeated or make peace. New conflicts would arise. But through it all, on a warm planet with blue oceans, a repair shop would keep running. Two people would keep living. And somewhere in the darkness of space, when Calther commanders lay awake at night, they would remember. Remember that once, 500 warships had hunted one human. And that human had won. They should have sent 5,000.